I don't know about you, but here where I live, we've just experienced an early chill in the air, bringing with it changing trees and the first falling leaves of the season. So, as is tradition on this channel, I'm here to recommend movies to put you into an autumnal atmosphere. Films with pumpkins, sweaters, golden hues, and crunching leaves. But not Halloween movies. That will be a video coming in October, although there will be a healthy dose of spookiness with these picks. My name is Daniel with the Cobweb channel, and let's get started with one of the most crisp autumn movies I've ever seen, The Village from 2004.
Did we make the right decision to settle here?
When a willful young man tries to venture beyond his sequestered Pennsylvania village, his actions set off a chain of chilling incidents that will alter the community forever. So this is the infamous movie that first started to break M. Night... Oh, the water's ready. I almost forgot to be expecting that. First started to break M. Night Shyamalan's near-perfect reputation. But I actually first watched it just a few years ago, and overall I thought it was okay. There was a lot that I liked about it, even though I definitely had some issues with it. We're gonna let this brew for a bit. But I just recently rewatched it, giving it a second chance, and I don't know, guys, I just completely fell in love with this movie. First of all, it has beautiful atmosphere. There's constant warm colors, bare trees, overcast skies, and blowing leaves through the wind. I'm also just particularly attracted to rural period piece atmosphere during this season that just seems so perfect for fall. Ultimately, it's a film about having a desire for a simpler life, and I think a lot of us feel that in the fall. The drop in the temperatures nudging us to slow down, reflect, and enjoy the simpler pleasures of life, which makes the characters here particularly relatable. And yes, I know the ending really upsets people, but honestly, guys, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I don't even really think of this as a horror film, more as a drama and a romance, and it works perfectly for me on those levels. I think the story is so interesting, so well told and paced. I love the characters and almost all of the performances. The ensemble cast is amazing, but by far the standout is Bryce Dallas Howard. I think she is spectacular in this movie. Incredibly likable, sympathetic, and you just so rally behind her in the third act when she has to become this incredible underdog against impossible odds. And I think the romance is absolutely beautiful. Something I do love about M. Night Shyamalan is he's a storyteller who totally wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very sentimental. He makes no apologies for it and just really goes for it. And he certainly does here. Some people may think it leads to some corny moments, but I think it leads to just embarrassingly sincere moments that I can't help but really fall for. But I can't deny that as a horror fan, I am more attracted to this than your average drama because it still has that element of spookiness. It has that lore of there being creatures in the woods and we must warn the children, nobody can go out there or horrible things will happen. That's just really the kind of vibes that I want to feel during the fall. For me, The Village is pretty perfect.
You're weird. I'm weird.
Mystic Pizza from 1988. This is about three teenage girls who come of age while working in a pizza parlor in Mystic, Connecticut. I know a lot of people romanticize New York City in the fall, but when it comes to this season, I want to be in a small town. I want to be in Mystic, Connecticut. I love the vibes of the town in this movie, and it is a real town, even though the movie wasn't technically filmed there, was more like neighboring towns in the area. But it's this really quaint seaside town with fantastic harvest season atmosphere, and I just really love the story of this. It's a drama slash romantic comedy that kind of plays in both camps, but I like it better than your typical romantic drama because it never gets too sappy, overly serious, or goes too dramatic with terrible things happening to the characters. It's just a tender little coming of age story about these girls, their relationships, their loves, their losses, and it always maintains an element of pleasantness that I just find really enjoyable to watch. Now, when this came out, Roger Ebert actually said that he thought this movie would eventually be known for having a lot of stars at the beginning of their careers, and wow, that is a prophetic statement because that's that's exactly what happened here. At the center, you've got Julia Roberts before she even did Pretty Woman, as well as Lily Taylor and Vincent D'Onofrio, and Matt Damon's first ever movie. He has like 2 lines in this. I really like the 3 girls here. Great characters with very distinct personalities, going through different things like first love, or trying to figure out if you want to marry your longtime boyfriend or not, or even one girl struggling with whether or not to have an affair with an older man. And a lot of the movie takes place at his lakeside cottage. That whole area is absolutely beautiful. There's fall decorations all over the town. It's just such a feel-good movie in this small New England town. I really enjoy it. But for our next movie, I gotta ask, what could be more fall than pumpkins? Or even pumpkin heads? And no, I don't mean the greatest fall Instagram reel of all time. I mean Pumpkinhead from 1988.
Looking for an old woman. She lives somewhere in the mountains hereabouts. All she can do is take you straight to hell.
Here you're not going to get fall of a quaint small town, but of the deep, dark backwoods. Areas so far off the beaten path, most people will never even see it, of the mountains, of swamps, and it captures that vibe so incredibly well. Here you're not going to see as many orange and red trees, but more just golden grass as far as the eye can see. In general, this is just a horror film that I love, but it's got so many things that make it perfect for a spooky autumn, such as going to visit a backwoods swamp witch to ask her to spellcast horrible revenge for you. Because this is a dark, sad movie about, yes, Lance Henriksen at the center, who's such a perfect actor for this because he's likable, but also has such a dark edge to him, about a guy who truly loses everything with the accidental death of his son at the hands of tourist college students, and will do anything to avenge him, even at the cost of his soul, having to go out to the creepiest pumpkin patch of all time. This is some of the greatest horror atmosphere I have ever seen to awaken the monster, the demon known as Pumpkinhead. It is truly one of the most perfect fall horror movies. It's genuinely emotional. Something that I love about this is the revenge is not really satisfying. It really accomplishes just being horrific, dark. This movie is the perfect representation of when you go out for revenge, you have to dig 2 graves, because it feels like the brutal selling of a soul, and it is sad. Most of the people that get slaughtered by Pumpkinhead aren't even unlikable. These are people that just made a horrible mistake. And the actual monster of Pumpkinhead is one of my favorite practical effects monsters I've ever seen. This is one of the few films that was actually directed by special effects artists. Many would say the greatest special effects artist, Stan Winston, and he brings this creature to life perfectly. Pumpkinhead is awesome any time of year, but is the best in the fall.
These behaviors could be interpreted as schizophrenia.
The Dark Half.
The Dark Half from 1993. A writer's pseudonym comes to life as a murderous doppelganger, forcing him into a deadly struggle against the violent half of himself he thought he had buried. If you're kind of confused by that synopsis, you're probably not alone. This is a Stephen King horror movie, and I can't deny it's kind of a confusing premise that doesn't perfectly make sense. It stars Timothy Hutton as this writer, and the lore behind him, how he had a twin in the womb that he ended up absorbing and started writing smutty books under a different name, and now that different name / that twin is coming to life and killing everybody that he knows, and ultimately it becomes one of those falsely accused movies where he gets accused of these murders because it really does seem like he did them, but maybe it's not him, but the other half of him. It's very weird. But still, I really enjoy this movie. It's directed by George Romero, hands down one of my favorite horror filmmakers of all time. He's just the best. And it is such a great fall movie. In general, Stephen King horror movies tend to be great for the fall. This is just another example. This is a darker version of fall, I would say, where it's pretty much always overcast skies, a lot of barren trees. You will still see some colorful trees. And pretty much anytime anybody's outside, which is for a lot of the movie, someone's crunching through leaves. It's just that kind of vibe. I do think Timothy Hutton is great in both roles. I love Amy Madigan as his wife, who just made a big splash with horror in Weapons, so you can watch another Amy Madigan horror movie here. and Michael Rooker as the sheriff. It's so rare to see Michael Rooker in a hero role, and it's really good to see. Almost the whole movie you're expecting him to suddenly turn out to be a psychopath, but no. He's just a good guy. This one has been particularly on my mind because I just got this beautiful new 4K release from Vinegar Syndrome. This release was like a dream come true when it got announced. So happy to have this as a huge fan of the weird, confusing, but ultimately I think pretty great horror film, The Dark Half.
Heartland Play Systems.
I'm having trouble with the Commando Elites. Like they're alive.
Let's roll.
Incoming!
Small Soldiers from 1998. When missile technology is used to enhance toy action figures, the toys soon began to take their battle programming too seriously. That is good. Man, I love Small Soldiers. I am so nostalgic about this. I loved this movie when I was a kid. It's directed by one of the all-time greatest filmmakers for feel-good movies, Joe Dante, and I just love what he did here. Even though he did set out to make an edgier movie for teenagers, and it did get toned down, I actually think that was for the best because this is such a great movie for kids that is just a little bit edgier and more violent than you might expect. I love watching these toys come to life and fight each other. I think the Gorgonites, all led by Archer, are like some of the coolest toys I've ever seen. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with getting an action figure of Archer, and yes, I did get one, as well as Major Chip Hazard. And they've even got a great voice cast for the robots with Frank Langella as Archer and Tommy Lee Jones as Chip. There's even more great people in here like a young Kirsten Dunst and Phil Hartman in sneakily one of his funniest roles. I just think he's hilarious as the neighbor in this. But as a fall movie, it's good, not great. It's good enough that I wish there was more. Towards the beginning of the movie, you do see a giant banner on the street for Oktoberfest, so you know it's in the fall. And overall, it just has that really nostalgic 90s small childhood town kind of feel. I love the way suburban towns felt in 90s movies like in Casper or Hocus Pocus. This totally has that feeling. Pretty much everybody is wearing very autumnal clothes with all warm colors, sweaters, cardigans, flannels. I just wish there were more leaves on the ground. I wish there were more changing trees. I wish they just went a little bit further with it, but I'm sure that was partly out of their control due to filming schedule, whatever it was. I still think it's a very cozy movie to watch in the fall, and for me at least, and for anyone that grew up in the 90s, you're probably incredibly nostalgic about it, and I genuinely think it still holds up.
I like you. I like you because I can say what's on my mind.
All the Real Girls from 2003. When Paul's best friend's sister returns home from boarding school, he finds himself falling for her innocent charm. In spite of her lack of experience and the violent protests of her brother, the two find themselves in an all-consuming love. This is a good old-fashioned indie drama romance movie. I've wanted to see this film for a long time because it's directed by David Gordon Green, a fascinatingly strange filmmaker who's made so many wildly different kind of movies. Famously, he made the latest Halloween trilogy, which maybe you love him for and maybe you despise him for. But either way, I think the one thing we can all agree about his Halloween movies is they have great autumnal atmosphere, and that carries over to All the Real Girls, probably one of the most exploding fall vibes films I've ever seen. It takes place in a sleepy little mill town in North Carolina and feels incredibly authentic for that blue-collar kind of feel that grants you that simpler way of life kind of vibe that you might want from a fall movie, but also is not at all unrealistically idyllic about that. But almost every frame of this is golden hued. People are always wearing sweaters and coats. You see those vibrant trees in the background. It's starring Paul Schneider and Zooey Deschanel in the lead roles, and they, as well as everything about the movie, feel so non-Hollywood. This is such a different Zooey Deschanel than you're probably familiar with. There are none of her signature quirks or zaniness. She's very grounded and gives a wonderful performance. Their relationship is so interesting because it's basically first love for the both of them, even though they have very different experience. He's a little bit older than her and is very sexually experienced, although has never actually truly cared about anyone, while she has no experience. And in that way, they both feel incredibly vulnerable, maybe even him the most. David Gordon Green said that he made this because he didn't recognize him and his feelings and vulnerabilities in any romance films that existed, and this does feel like an embarrassingly honest movie about love. The film is told somewhat non-linear. They even threw out the first 40 pages of the script that builds up their romance and everything. So the opening scene is just them confronting each other, realizing that they're falling for each other. And it's like one of the most tender scenes I've ever seen in my life. At every turn, the film refuses to be Hollywood, typical, or even satisfying, which may leave you feeling conflicted by the end. But I thought it was a very interesting movie and just one of the most fall movies I've ever seen. But next, let's get a lot darker and talk about Pyewacket from 2017.
Darkness, I charge you with this sign. Mother and the night are mine. I invite you to come.
This might be one of the scariest fall movies you're likely to see. Not just because of the things that play out on screen and the things that shows you, although I do think there are some really creepy, really unsettling images and moments in this film, but also because of what led to them. This isn't just like you moved into a haunted house and got unlucky with some ghosts around, but our main character is responsible for everything happening. She is a sad, broken girl because of the death of her father, but maybe even not as broken as her mother losing her husband, played by Laurie Holden, who most people will probably recognize from The Walking Dead. And they have so much conflict, dysfunction, cannot get along, and like many teenage girls do, she gets incredibly angry and makes mistakes and does irrational things because of it. But what if a girl like this was obsessed with the occult and actually had learned quite a bit about it and could invoke a ritual in the woods to bring a spirit about to kill her mother? That's what this movie is about. It is so dark and unsettling, but feels incredibly real in its portrayal of the occult and makes you believe that this kind of thing could happen throughout the runtime of it. So on a human character level, it's very interesting. It's very complicated and never one-sided about any of the characters. Everyone is multifaceted with good and bad. And I just love that it tackles heightened teenage emotions and how people often make terrible mistakes during these years. But what if you made the worst mistake that you cannot take back and could ruin your life forever? On a fall vibes level, it's great. I love the woods in the fall, and that's mostly the kind of atmosphere that you get here. Down in the woods with barren trees and crunching leaves all around. And they even go into this small country store in their town, and there's fall and Halloween decorations everywhere. So that stuff is so great. I don't lie to you guys about when a movie is actually scary, because I'm a pretty jaded horror fan that's not scared by a lot. This one I think is genuinely creepy and really good. But as long as we're getting dark, let's just get even darker for the next movie. In fact, let's go off a cliff with Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer from 1986.
What?
Did you really kill your mama?
I guess I did.
I was really conflicted on whether or not I was going to recommend this in this video, because it's not the kind of vibe we like to stick with videos like this. But then I remembered that a lot of people actually get really into true crime around the fall, and it's where a lot of true crime podcasts and documentaries peak in viewership. So if that's you, you might actually really enjoy checking this out, as it's not technically true crime. It's a fictional movie, but is loosely based on a real killer named Henry Lee Lucas. It takes place in Chicago and is about a serial killer played by Michael Rooker. Shout out Michael Rooker's second appearance here, who moves in with an ex-con friend and his sister and begins training the friend in the ways of being a serial killer. For a long time, this was one of those movies that I was actually a little bit too scared to watch. I wasn't sure if I wanted to see something this disturbing, but I checked it out this year and it ended up being one of the best first-time experiences that I've had this year. I think this is an incredible, emotionally gut-wrenching movie that is very, very disturbing. For most of the movie, I was actually pretty okay with it. It's sick and twisted, but it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. But man, by the third act, this movie just like ripped my guts out. Not necessarily because it's so graphic, although it certainly is at times. It does hold a lot of the violence back, but that just makes the horrible things you do see all the more impactful. But it's really because of just how sad, how heartbreaking this movie is. I mean, I just find the friend's sister, who's one of the main characters here, one of the most tragic characters I've ever seen in a movie. Just everything about her just breaks my heart. When it comes to the States, New England is probably the best for fall atmosphere, but the Midwest is still pretty great. And for such a chilly, windy city like Chicago, you do get beautiful fall atmosphere in this. Also, a lot of scenes taking place in surrounding suburbs and country roads. I would expect the atmosphere in a movie like this to be more bleak and oppressive, but it's shockingly bright, vivid, and idyllic, which is very, very weird. I can't deny this is a great fall movie, but only watch if you were okay being disturbed. But for this next movie, I can finally pick my cozy mug back up, and let's talk about what I would say is the greatest fall movie of all time. The greatest ever movie for non-Halloween, pure autumnal vibes. Alfred Hitchcock's The Trouble with Harry from 1955. If you know anything about Hitchcock, you know the vast majority of his movies are about murder, and The Trouble with Harry is no exception, even though the tone is completely different. This is a rare comedy for Hitchcock, but it's not a zany, crazy screwball comedy. It's a very chill, cozy, amusing movie with really, really charming characters. I love the casting here with Edmund Gwynn, Shirley MacLaine in her first movie, and John Forsythe actually being the standout here as this really funny, eccentric, fast-talking artist, bohemian kind of guy. He's so fun. And the plot is so funny. It's about the discovery of a dead body, and several of them start to suspect that they're each responsible for the death in different ways, and they try to figure out who's actually responsible and bury the body, dig it back up, bury the body, dig it back up for different reasons that ends up becoming totally hilarious. So I just think it's such a fun little movie. But the atmosphere is out of this world. It takes place in a small Vermont town. I've never been to Vermont, but it's one of the states I most want to go in the fall. Everything that I've seen when it comes to Vermont in the fall, just one of the most beautiful places in the world. They actually filmed the movie there, but they discovered once they got there that most of the leaves had already fallen. So the crew ended up gluing a bunch of leaves onto the trees. That is how far their dedication went in creating the best fall atmosphere of all time, and they did it. It's jaw-dropping how vivid the colors are, how bright this movie pops. I could not love the feeling of this movie anymore. It's one of my favorite movies to watch during the season. The Trouble with Harry is perfect. Before I go, I just want to send out a massive thank you to my patrons who truly make this channel possible. If anyone else wants to support me during this spooky season, there's always a link to my Patreon in the description below. And I want to give a special shout out to Wilfred Pennington, William Brinkman, and Zachary Smith. You guys are the absolute best. If you want to check these movies out for yourself, I do have streaming options right here on the screen, but of course those are subject to change. So I also have links for physical media in the description below, and using those does help support the channel. You can also check the link in the pinned comment for my newly designed autumnal shirt that you can pick up for this season in my TeePublic store, and click the video on the screen if you want to hang out with me more. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to enjoy yourselves this autumn, have some fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.